Do you pull away from people when you're depressed or love someone who does? I do. When I'm depressed, I don't disappear because I don't care. Sometimes I disappear because I don't have the energy or the words to explain what's happening inside me. For me, isolation isn't about rejecting anyone. It's about trying to survive what's happening internally. Now, stay with me because isolation can look very different on the outside than it feels like on the inside. And I know that people experience depression differently. And so, this is me sharing my experience of what isolation looks and feels like. Welcome to Both Sides of Me. In a previous video, I talked about what depression looks and feels like, and I hope you'll watch that and forgive the major editing errors. But today, I want to talk about why I isolate during a depressive episode, what that isolation feels like, why even answering a simple text message can become difficult, and what I wish people understood before they took that silence personally. And later in this video, I'm going to share a few small things I've been trying to help myself reconnect without shaming myself for pulling away. So here's something I do when I pull away. I mean, there isn't just one reason I isolate. Usually several things are happening at the same time. Sometimes it feels easier to pull away than to explain what I'm going through. And when someone asks me what's wrong, I may not even know how to answer that. And sometimes I don't even understand what I'm feeling myself. I know that I'm struggling, but putting that struggle into words can be overwhelming. And another reason I pull away is because I don't want to be a burden. And I don't want people to think that they have to fix me. And also, I don't want to admit I'm struggling because I'm afraid that people might be tired of hearing it. And sometimes I'm also afraid that what I'm going through will be minimized, and that's hard. And I worry that someone will tell me to cheer up and think positive and get out of the house and focus on everything I have to be grateful for. And I know people often mean well, but when I'm deeply depressed, those responses can make me feel even more alone. And then depression is exhausting. It's exhausting physically, mentally, emotionally, of course. And often I'm having this internal conversation with myself, this struggle. I may be criticizing myself, worrying about other people, worrying about what they think, replaying things I've done, or trying to force myself to complete basic tasks. And so at the same time, not only is it emotionally exhausting, I can feel physically drained. And when I'm using most of my energy just to get through the day, I may not have much left for conversations or social interaction. When I say that I isolate, it can show up in several different ways. I may cancel plans, I may cancel appointments, even the important ones, and I did that recently and I regret it because I can't get back in for a month and it's an important one. I may pull back from volunteering or other commitments. I may pull back from family issue or what do you call those engagements. And I may spend much more time in bed and I may leave calls and texts unanswered. Now, that's a big one for me, not responding to texts and calls. It's interesting how something as small as a text message can be surprisingly complicated during depression. Now, there's this friend of mine. We've been best friends for over 20 years, and I love our conversation. She's very supportive and she's wonderful. But recently she called me a couple times and I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just couldn't. I didn't know what to say, and I felt terrible about it. It's not that I didn't want to answer. I felt pressure and I don't know why. Sometimes a simple message or phone call can feel like pressure, even from a loved one. And then if someone asks, "How are you?" I may not know whether to tell the truth, pretend I'm okay, or just avoid answering altogether. I often avoid phone calls because I'm not up for small talk, and I just don't want to come across as not listening or uninterested. And I may tell myself I'll answer or call back later, and then later becomes evening, and evening becomes tomorrow. And the longer I wait, the more guilt builds. And eventually, I'm not only trying to answer the original message, I also feel like I have to explain why it disappeared. And that makes replying even harder. From the inside or outside, excuse me, this can look like I'm being distant, rude, cold, uninterested, or unreliable. But for me, on the inside, it may feel like exhaustion, shame, fear, guilt, overwhelm, and not knowing how to explain what's happening. And that guilt creates another layer of isolation. Now I'm not only depressed, I also feel bad for being depressed. I feel bad for not answering. I feel bad for not showing up, for canceling, and I feel like I'm disappointing everyone around me. I also worry that I'm being a bad friend. I worry about being a bad family member or a bad wife. I worry how my children are going to take it if I take a long time to answer them. And I worry that people will think I don't care about them. And I also worry about being unreliable and flaky. I feel ashamed that I cannot show up the way I want to. Then the longer I've been away, the harder it can feel to come back. I may convince myself that people are upset with me, they're disappointed in me, or even better off with me, even if that has never been said. Depression can make those feelings and fears seem completely true, and they're usually not. Now, here's a contradiction that can be especially hard to explain. Isolating doesn't necessarily mean I want to be alone. One of the hardest parts is that I can feel lonely and still not have the strength to reach out. I may want connection, but not have the energy for a full conversation. I may want someone to check on me, but still feel too overwhelmed to answer. And I may want somebody nearby, but I don't know how to ask for quiet company. I don't need advice. I don't need someone to fix everything. I may just need to know that I haven't been forgotten. And that can be confusing, not only for the people around me, but also for me. Now, before I go on, I think it's important to know that there is a difference between taking some time alone because I need rest and isolating in a way that pulls me deeper into that depression. Because being alone is not always unhealthy. Sometimes I genuinely need the quiet and the space. But for me, the warning sign is when isolation stops helping me recover and starts keeping me away from that support, appointments, responsibilities, or basic parts of my life. And then another reason I isolate is being around people I feel like I have to mask. And I don't like that. And by masking, I mean trying to act okay so other people don't see how much I'm struggling. An example of that is I like to go to church, but and we have a very friendly ward church, and I go when I'm depressed. I try to go, and I end up smiling when I don't feel like smiling, making small talk, trying to sound cheerful when I'm not, pretending that I have energy I don't have, and acting as though nothing is wrong. I actually did that recently when I went to visit family, and they're familiar to me. They're family, but I ended up masking there too. I just didn't want them to really know what was going on with me. And so, sometimes being around people feels like a performance. I'm trying to respond appropriately, follow the conversation, and appear okay. And people may not realize how much energy it takes to do that. So sometimes isolation feels easier than performing wellness. I'm not necessarily avoiding people, I'm avoiding the performance of pretending I'm okay. Now, this next part is really important. This is what I really wish loved ones understood. Silence is not rejection. Depression can make communication and showing up feel very overwhelming. So try not to immediately assume that someone's silence means they're angry, rude, uncaring, or no longer interested in the relationship. They may be fighting something you cannot see. Here's what may help if someone you care about has disappeared for a while. Try a gentle check-in. It can mean a lot. You might send a message that says, "You don't have to respond. I just want you to know I'm thinking about you." You could say, "I care about you. There's no pressure to explain anything," or "I'm here whenever you're ready." And if I do manage to say I'm struggling in text, I would love it when someone would say, "Would you like me to check in again tomorrow?" Those kind of messages leave the door open without creating more pressure. Now, here's what doesn't help. Shaming someone for disappearing. That doesn't help. Repeatedly asking for an explanation may create more guilt. And making the person feel guilty for not responding can push them further into isolation. Know that gentle connection is different from pressure. Quietly reminding someone that they matter can help again keep that door open. Patience can be very powerful. So here's what I've been trying when I isolate. And so if you're still here with me, thank you. Now, I don't want to only talk about hows and the whys and the painful part of isolating. I also want to share again what I've been trying, because I'm still learning how to come out of isolation myself and not make myself feel guilty for being there. I'm definitely not perfect at this. I still struggle a lot. There are no magical solutions. There are simple, small steps I've been trying when I'm able. So one thing I've been trying is choosing one small step out of isolation. I do this by challenging myself to do one social thing a day. And right now, they're small. And I want you to know that I did not come up with this idea. It was with the help of my therapist. So we do need support. I need support. So sometimes I'll send a short text instead of a full conversation, or trying to give a full explanation of why I'm here or what I'm doing or anything like that. Sometimes we have a family chat going, and sometimes I'll just respond with a heart or a like, or sometimes I'll get creative and I'll send one of those memes. I've started going outside for a few minutes. I have not worked up to a walk down the neighborhood, but I do go outside, change of scenery. I am going to try this next thing. I haven't done it, but there's this favorite coffee shop I go to, and I don't get coffee, I don't drink it, but I get these protein smoothies that are really good. And I know the ladies there, and they like to ask how I'm doing and do a little chit chat. And I haven't tried it, but I'm going to. And I think that would be a big step for me. And just so you know, attending my appointments, whether they be in person or virtual, that counts. And believe me, that is one thing I will keep doing because of that last appointment that I missed. I even challenged myself to answer a call. Usually it's from a family member or my best friend. Now, I accept a small amount of connection instead of believing it has to be all or nothing. And something I'm doing is, and this is my husband supporting me, he'll go to the grocery store or he'll pick up my prescriptions for me. But lately he's been asking me if I'd like to ride along. And I have been doing my very best. I think I've only told him no once. But when I go, sometimes there are times when I stay in the car, and that may not sound like much, but sometimes simply leaving the house and being near someone is a step forward for me. I don't have to force myself to be cheerful. I don't have to have a long conversation. Fortunately, I'm married to an introvert, and so he doesn't mind if we don't have long conversations. But I'm still getting myself out of the house. I'm changing my surroundings and allowing a small connection. Um, and sometimes that is enough for me. I don't always succeed, but I'm trying to stop treating every setback as a personal failure. I'm also trying to lower my expectations for communication. I know that I don't always have to send a long explanation. Sometimes I can simply say, I'm having a difficult time right now. I care about you. I'm just struggling. And a short message still counts as communication, and it still counts as a social activity. And sometimes that small text to someone else's text can evolve into an actual conversation. And this just happened recently with my friend. She sent me a text, and I texted her back and I said, I'm really struggling right now. And her response was, I am so sorry to hear that. I know how hard it is for you, and I'm here for you. For some reason, those words just helped so much. And she followed it with, I really wish you were here. And I don't know, I just responded to the text, and the text kept going and it kept going, and it was nice, and I felt successful. That was a win for me, a major win. So we do need our support, and I think it is very important to talk with a therapist or a doctor or a trusted support person or someone else who understands what's happening. And that's nice to have that community. An example of that was that appointment that I canceled was really important, and they couldn't get me in for a month. And I had a doctor appointment, and I almost canceled it because I was really having a bad day. But I just told myself, I am going to do this today. I went to go pick up my prescription, and it wasn't ready, and that stressed me out so much. And I had time before that doctor appointment, so I sat in the parking lot for a little bit and I tried to talk myself down, and it was hard. I decided instead of going home, I went into the doctor, but I didn't see her for what I was actually there for. I told her, I said, I'm really struggling right now and I need your help. And I told her what was happening. And she said she was surprised I even showed up. And I said, I just needed someone, and you're it. And so we talked about it, and I felt so much better. And when I went back to the pharmacy, they still didn't have my prescription, and that sent me over the edge again. And I went home crying the whole way. So that attempt to get out of isolation didn't work, but it did work. But I still counted it as a win. But when I went home, I have a support person there, and I just told him I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm absolutely done. I can't do this. And he calmly said, yes, you can. And that calmed me, and I was able to take a break. I went and took a little nap, and I moved on. So isolation can feel safer in the moment, but I know I still deserve that support. And again, I'm still learning how to reach out when everything in me wants to disappear. But I'm learning to celebrate those wins, which is something that can be very hard for me. So if you isolate when you're depressed, I want to say this to you. You are not a bad person because you struggle to communicate. You are not uncaring because you do not always have the energy to respond. You do not have to explain everything perfectly. You do not have to suddenly become social. And I want you to hear this. You are not alone in this. Isolation is common during depression, but again, you still deserve support. So let's start small. Arthur Ashe, a former professional tennis player and activist, said, "Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can." And I think that's really good advice. So send one message, accept one small moment of connection, tell one safe person you're struggling. And if all you can do is send a message that says, "I'm not okay, but I'm safe," that still counts as reaching out. And acknowledge your efforts and give yourself grace on the days you can't be social. And here's an invitation. If you feel safe sharing, I would love to hear from you. Now, I know this takes a great deal of courage and vulnerability, but if you can, I'd like to know, do you isolate when you get depressed? And what do you wish people understood about it? Again, share only what feels safe. You do not have to tell more of your story than you want to. My hope is that this comment section can be a place where people feel understood and not judged. Now remember, isolation during depression can be really hard to explain. Sometimes what looks like distance is really someone struggling under more than they know how to put into words. And if you isolate when you're depressed, I hope you know that you are not alone. And if someone you love pulls away during depression, I hope this video helps you understand that silence is not always rejection, and there are ways that you can help. Sometimes silence is pain. Sometimes silence is just survival. And sometimes what helps most isn't pressure, but gentle connection. And the smallest gentle connection can mean more than people realize. It's a quiet reminder that we haven't been forgotten. Thank you for being with me on both sides of me. It's helpful to know that I'm not alone either. And if this video helped you feel seen or helped you better understand someone you love, I hope you'll subscribe and come back for more honest conversations about living with bipolar disorder. And until next time, please take care of yourself and remember, you are not alone and your story matters.